This is Wolf Blitzer, CNN's military affairs correspondent here at the Pentagon, where we just had a briefing with Pentagon spokesman Pete Williams explaining what he said were 2 Scud missile attacks destroyed by U.S.-made Patriot air defense missiles. Joining us in our Washington bureau is James Blackwell from the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, and also CNN's military affairs analyst. Mr. Blackwell, what do you make of all of this?
Well, Wolf, it's going to be very important to resolve the contradictory information as soon as possible, because a lot of things are riding on the accuracy and effectiveness of these Patriot missiles against the Scud attacks. We don't know if we have 3 hits against 3 targets, or if we have perhaps 3 hits against maybe 5 targets, in which case there would be 2 misses. So I'm sure that the people on the ground there will be racing to the scene and trying to resolve these contradictory reports as soon as possible. Now, it also means that the danger from Scud missiles certainly is not over, and certainly Saddam Hussein will continue to try to launch. We had 8 the first night, 3 the second night, none last night, and now tonight there are 2. There may well be more before the day is over. I think the jury is still out as to how many there are, and it would be interesting to hear how they are searching for the launchers that precipitated this particular attack.
Mr. Blackwell, Pete Williams suggested that these Scuds, these 2 Scuds that were directed towards Dhahran, were coming from southern Iraq, presumably north of the Kuwaiti border. Does that mean anything, the fact that they are still managing to unload Scuds from southern Iraq?
Well, it was my understanding that there were several prepared, pre-positioned sites in southern Iraq, and that these sites were ready for rapid entry, setting up the missile, launching it, and then getting out very quickly. That may be where they were launched from. It's very difficult to totally destroy those sites, and we may not have known where they all were. It means that there may be others, and we'd have to continue to keep a close eye on those sites. If this was the case, and we knew where those prepared sites were, we may not have seen the trucks pull in and launch, but it's very likely that with the J-STARS radar watching that area, we could have picked up the movement of the truck away and might be able to pick it up later on this evening.
Thank you very much, James Blackwell, CNN's military affairs analyst. This is Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon. We're going to go to our regularly scheduled program, World Report, but if there is any breaking news, we'll be right back with all the latest information. Thank you.
Welcome back to CNN World Report, where we bring you uncensored reports from the world's broadcasters. I'm Rolf Wengate. One of the key players in the anti-Iraq coalition, Egypt's President Hosni Mubarak, has called on Israel not to retaliate for bombings in its territory. Egypt, along with Morocco and Syria, has troops participating in the coalition, and it shares with Syria fears that an Israeli attack could turn the war into an Arab-Israeli conflict. ETV reports that it is Saddam Hussein, not the Iraqi people, whom Egyptians blame for the hostilities.
Most Egyptians feel that the end of the Gulf War is near and that Saddam Hussein has to surrender soon, in spite of the unprecedented ferocious raids launched against Iraq in the past few days. Yet Egyptians believe that Saddam Hussein is the one responsible for the enormous losses Iraq has suffered so far. Egyptians certainly sympathize with the people of Iraq, but believe that Saddam Hussein does not care for his people or their suffering. In this respect, they refer to the appeals and sincere efforts President Mubarak had made in an attempt to convince Saddam Hussein to withdraw from Kuwait and save the whole region from the devastation and horrors of war. Mubarak made the last of these appeals few hours only before the end of the United Nations deadline to Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait. But of course, Saddam Hussein disregarded the appeal, the same attitude he had shown to all previous world attempts to solve the Gulf crisis peacefully. Observers predict a tragic end for Saddam Hussein. However, this is the only possible way that would open a new era for freedom and prosperity for the people of Iraq. Suhair Hafiz from ETV Cairo for CNN World Report.
Earlier this week on CNN, Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi urged an immediate halt to the Gulf War. The Libyan leader warned of the consequences, saying it could lead to a third world war. Here's a portion of that interview provided by Libyan television.
The situation in the Gulf is very serious, and I am afraid that very serious consequences may reflect on the relationship between Arabs and Americans in the future. I don't speak about Gaddafi or Bush or Hosni Mubarak or Hussein or Saddam or Fahd. I speak about the future of the Arabs and the Americans, new generations. And bombing Baghdad must stop immediately. It is in accordance with the will of the American people. If there is democracy in the United States of America and in Europe, the war must stop immediately, because all the peoples of Europe and America are now demonstrating in the streets saying war must stop immediately. It is the voice of peoples of America and the voice of peoples of Europe. It is the will of the peoples of West. They say war must stop, and I say war must stop. I support this message. I support these people. The bombing Baghdad must stop immediately. Otherwise, as I said, serious consequences on the future may reflect on the relationship between Arabs and Americans. For Kuwait, Kuwait must be liberated by people of Kuwait. Kuwait is for Kuwaitians, and our brothers in Baghdad must leave Kuwaitian people to decide its determination, self-determination for Kuwaitian people, not by force. If we have to unify Kuwait with Iraq, not by force. We are against the invasion of Iraq to Kuwait. Kuwait for Kuwaitians, not for Iraqis, in fact. But Kuwaitians, Iraqis are Arabs in the same time. No right for other foreign forces to interfere in this area. It is very serious on the issue of peace, international peace. And I am afraid also that Russia may interfere in any time if America and this coalition pass the red line in the Gulf. And some countries are now beating the drums of war. They must stop this beating the drums of war, like Turkey. The Soviet Union now reconcentrating its troops on the borders of Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. Turkey now is beating the drums of war, as I said. And NATO now speaks about to spread its troops in the Mediterranean. What is the relation between Mediterranean and the Gulf? I am afraid that serious deterioration may take place in future, and all the world find themselves involved in Third World War. And this one is different from the Second World War, First World War. This age is very serious. There is nuclear weapons and chemical weapons and biological weapons, and we have to stop war immediately and to solve this problem peacefully. And we as Arabs, we have to do our best to solve this problem brotherly between Kuwaitis and Iraqis.
That interview provided by Libyan television. Next on CNN World Report, Cubans angered at the onset of war.
It's there in the way an officer smiles, in the way a steward remembers your name, a kindness that comes easily, a genuine warmth, service that is truly a step above. Come, and for a week or so, allow yourself to be absolutely spoiled by the people of Holland, America, who've made us the best cruise line in the world.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered the 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
Complete coverage from the Middle East and around the world. Now, more than ever, stay with the world's news leader, CNN.
Ahora mismo me han hecho una seña de que se iniciaron las acciones combatientes.
In Latin America, the response to the outbreak of war has been mixed. Most nations worry about the war's impact on their fragile economies and hope for a speedy resolution to the conflict. Argentina's President Carlos Menem reaffirmed his country's commitment to 2 ships to the Gulf, making Argentina the only Latin American country officially at war with Iraq. In contrast were comments by Cuban leader Fidel Castro, who says the United States wanted a war, not peace in the Gulf. Cuba Visión has more from Cuba.
Among the Cubans, the start of the war swept away their hopes that the conflict would be solved politically. The visit to Havana of some 20 U.S. journalists who toured the facilities under construction for the coming Pan American Games was ending with a press conference when the news of the war breakout suddenly came in.
Ahora mismo me han hecho una seña.
They have just this moment told me that the military actions have begun.
In front of the U.S. interest section in Havana, an American writer, Ron Nightingale, expressed his rejection to the beginning of the bombings.
I renounce my citizenship as a United States citizen. My name is Ronald M. Ridenhour, and take it.
Meanwhile, the worsening of the hostilities had a deep repercussion within this island.
It is known how a conflict begins. We know how this one began, but now we don't know how it's going to end.
Ecológicamente también sería un desastre.
It would also be an ecologic disaster. The contamination of the seas, the pollution of the environment, and the many human beings who will be hurt by this war.
El propio comandante en jefe anoche se refería a esa posibilidad.
Our own commander-in-chief has called this war a failure of politicians, and I'm fully convinced of that.
I think that from the very beginning there was a bet on war and not to peace. And at the end, war won that bet.
In Havana and from Cuba Visión, Gilberto Caballero reporting for the CNN World Report.
A member of the United Nations Security Council, Romania is looking for funds from the UN to help meet energy shortages caused by the Gulf War. Inside the country, the Supreme Defense Council issued an order Saturday authorizing the government to seize weapons owned by civilians. The council said the measure was necessary because of increased tensions resulting from the Gulf War. Romania's TRL has more on other steps taken in response to the conflict.
The peaceful and hopeful Romanian nation was deeply surprised by the outbreak of the Gulf War.
Although it is rather far away, Romania had to recommend to its population certain measures imposed by the conflict. The Supreme Council of National Defense met on January the 17th to set up provisions to maintain the security of economic objectives and the safety of civil population. The council was chaired by the President Ion Iliescu, and it was joined by the leaders of the 2 houses of the parliament. Those present analyzed the situation as it was at that time and adopted rules and provisions meant to keep the country running normally and safely. The government was asked to take appropriate measures at the borders to prevent illegal exports of fuel, food and sensitive materials. It was decided to take tighter security measures inside and around economic objectives of vital importance to the country. An unpopular measure adopted by the government was the rationing of gasoline to 40 liters per month for street cars and a double price for any extra fuel surpassing this quota. Although many motorists rushed to the stations to catch their last chance of buying cheap unlimited gasoline before that rule came into effect, things went back to normal, most of the people taking it for granted that in times of crisis such a decision is acceptable. There are no evident signs of tension in the streets. The only visible follow-up of the decisions adopted by the Supreme Council of National Defense being the security measures adopted to protect diplomats and foreign interests in Romania. More police units patrol the area of foreign air companies, embassies and the like. People in the streets don't seem to mind too much these extra precautions. Now they hope and pray that the war will soon be over and things may go back to normal. For CNN World Report, this is Nicolae Melinescu from Romanian television.
A number of countries are offering medical assistance to the two sides involved in the conflict. A Czechoslovak medical unit is ready to provide assistance to anti-Iraqi forces with a team of trauma specialists, surgeons, and paramedics. And 250 Cuban doctors and nurses working in Iraq have been treating Iraqi casualties of the airstrikes. Hungary's MTV reports on the departure of a Hungarian medical unit slated to work with Saudi doctors.
The Hungarian medical unit, consisting of 37 volunteers, left for Saudi Arabia on January 14th to join the international military forces. This unit won't go under the British command as it was planned earlier. The members of the unit will work in one of the Saudi hospitals 350 kilometers from the front line, and they'll be working under Saudi hospital officials. At least 37 of 150 applicants left for Saudi Arabia, 29 men and 12 women. 23 specialists in more than 40 medical branches are among them. The Hungarian Prime Minister, Joseph Antal, delivered a farewell message to them. Colonel Gheorghe Keleti, the Speaker of the Ministry for Defense, said this medical unit has had 1 week's training for the Gulf conducted by a special group from Saudi Arabia. Concerned about the security of the members of the unit and their families, he didn't mention the concrete time of their departure and the place of their stay in Saudi Arabia. He said the Hungarian unit will work in one of the Saudi hospitals. Because of security reasons, only one member of the unit, Major Dr. Gabor Cernak, gave an interview to reporters.
It is a moral imperative for us not only to support the sending of the unit, but to take part in this activity. I've got 5 years medical experience in tropical countries, 3 years in Nigeria, and 2 in Laos. I'm a specialist in infectious and tropical diseases. To speak frankly, I hope we'll deal there with the diseases not connected with the war. As I'm informed, we'll stay here for a minimum of 30 days and a maximum of 6 months.
This report prepared by Hungary's MTV for the CNN World Report.
Coming up next on CNN World Report, on an island in the Pacific Ocean, prayers for loved ones in the Gulf.
Well, this doesn't look very interesting. I mean, I thought you'd have me try something a little fancier, maybe with nuts and fruit cocktail. These are nothing but flakes. It isn't at all what I expected. I like it. Oh, I get it. It's a whole new kind of cereal. Simple and back to basics, right? I like it.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Corn Flakes?
Taste them again for the first time. They're coming. Dow Bathroom Cleaner with scrubbing bubbles. It's 50% stronger than original Dow Bathroom Cleaner. We work even harder, so you don't have to.
Ricola, the all-natural herb cough drop imported from Switzerland. Ricola has been soothing throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years.
Very good. Where does America's money come from?
Kathy.
The government. It's their job to make the money. And to keep it safe so people can work real hard and earn it.
And then what happens? Jeffrey.
People find a real good place for it, so it's there when they need things.
The safety of the American government and a trusted place for dollars to grow. The two principles behind Spartan U.S. Treasury Money Market Fund from Fidelity Investments. A money fund that combines high current yields with the added safety of U.S. Treasury investments. Plus, there's no sales charge. What's more, Fidelity guarantees to keep fund expenses low all the way into 1995. Call this number now for a free fact kit. Spartan U.S. Treasury Money Market Fund. Ringing in the future with safety and security for your savings. For your free fact kit, call 1-800-535-8500. The minimum investment is $20,000. Call Fidelity today.
Tuesday night on TBS. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Catherine Ross, Sam Elliott, The Legacy. 8:05 Eastern on TBS Tuesday night.
During the Christmas season in American Samoa, the thoughts of many of the local citizens were with their sons and daughters who were serving in the U.S. military. American Samoa is a U.S. territory. It's made up of 7 islands in the Pacific Ocean. With a population of 46,000, it has 7,000 men and women serving in the United States military, one of the highest percentages in the United States. When their families gathered to send wishes to those serving in the Persian Gulf, KVZK-TV was there and filed this report.
The sound of music at this special service for Samoan soldiers in Operation Desert Shield expresses the feelings of parents, relatives, and friends who gathered recently to pray not only for world peace and safety of all American soldiers in the armed forces, but especially for sons and daughters of Samoa deployed to the Persian Gulf. The service, called by the governor, was held at such a time when families gather for the Christmas holidays, a time for remembrance, a time for joy, a time for peace. Yet the Samoans, just like anywhere in the United States, were thinking of the crisis in the Middle East and its outcome. The service included remarks focused on peace and love from head ministers of various church organizations and the governor. But the most touching part of the 2-hour-long service was when families of some of the soldiers in Saudi Arabia were given a chance to talk directly to their sons and daughters, husbands and fathers on television. Video recordings of these were sent a few days later to the Samoan soldiers in Saudi Arabia. All family members were basically saying encouraging words to their sons and daughters to depend in God and pray always as they engage in the fight for world peace and freedom at this time in the Gulf. According to information received by the American Samoa government, more than 200 Samoan men and women are now in Saudi Arabia. It's to be noted that American Samoa has more soldiers serving in the armed forces than any other place in the United States with the same size and population as American Samoa. I'm Rosemary from KVZK-TV in American Samoa for CNN World Report.
As the war continues, attention begins to focus on its possible duration. But many analysts also ponder what kind of realignments in the world order and the global balance of power the conflict might bring. The West African nation of Cameroon is far from the hostilities, and yet it doesn't expect to remain untouched. With some thoughts on that, we have a commentary from Cameroon CRTV.
Everything, like in all wars, will depend on its outcome, with the only difference this time around that it will not be a matter of who wins or loses. The outcome is something of a foregone conclusion. Iraq will be routed. What will determine the state of the post-war world, therefore, will not be whether or not the Allies win. It will be a matter of duration, of cost, and of effect. Not victory, but the kind of victory. Survivors will look back to see how valiantly the Iraqi army stood against the greatest and the most sophisticated war machine ever mounted. Analysts and historians will measure the damage inflicted not so much by the Allies on Iraq, but by Iraq on the enemy and on the countries of the region before being brought down to its knees. How long the Iraqis hold out, with or without assistance, will be an important factor in the necessary restructuring of the regional and world order after the war is won. How many lives, Iraqi lives, American lives, Israeli lives, British lives, French lives, Senegalese lives, and so on, how many lives are taken in the conflagration, what material damage is inflicted on installations, oil installations especially, will be key elements that will go into the redefinition of the new basis for world peace. A quick, massive, and decisive war with reduced casualties in Allied ranks will make of the United States the undisputed policeman of the universe and the guarantor of the new world order until Japan, Germany, the Soviet Union, or someone else resurfaces to question its hegemony. Washington will spell the rules, the capitalist argument expressed so forcefully in 1990 will take root, and the world will be made to dream American dreams. If the war drags out and the price of peace becomes a heavy one to pay in men and materials, George Bush will be damned, America derided, and the world leadership contest open. A post-war world in these circumstances will buy its peace on terms that recognize the broader spread of power blocks, terms that will probably set human civilization on a completely new course. The world may just never be the same again. I am Eric Chinje, CRTV in Yaoundé for CNN World Report.
Here's a rundown of the next half hour of CNN World Report. Cyprus expresses concern about the war. In Saudi Arabia, Kuwait's emir thanks those who've come to his aid. The Soviet Union reports on Lithuania. Ghana on a new way for Africans to find out about each other. South Africans strive toward nationalization, and Namibia is mysteriously bombed.
Are you still living with this nightmare? Over 1 million motorists have said never again. They've switched to Triple Edge, and the difference is amazing.
This is the first set of wipers that really work for my car. Triple Edge has made my driving easier and safer.
Triple Edge is the world's first high-tech windshield wiper. It clears, it cleans, it wipes dry, all in a single pass. But that's not all. Triple Edge wipers are not made of rubber. They won't tear, dry rot, or freeze to your windshield. Triple Edge is made from DuPont Nordell, the same material used in 50,000-mile radial tires. It's so strong, we guarantee these wipers for as long as you own your car. If they ever fail, we'll replace them free.
Triple Edge wipers are absolutely great. It's been raining for 2 weeks straight, and I almost enjoy driving in it.
Triple Edge gives you visibility through the heaviest downpour. It whisks away snow and ice. Even mud is no match for Triple Edge. State troopers, ambulances, and taxi cabs are now using these incredible wipers. Shouldn't you?
The day after I got my Triple Edge wipers, we had a big snowstorm with blowing sleet and wind. Everybody had trouble seeing except me. My visibility was beautiful.
Join the satisfied million who have switched to Triple Edge. No noise, no streaking, no smearing, no tearing. They're custom fit to install in seconds on your car, van, or truck. Triple Edge wipers are only $19.95 a pair, guaranteed for as long as you own your car. Order yours now. They're the last windshield wipers you'll ever buy.
Call toll-free 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257. Or send $19.95 plus $4.50 shipping and handling to Triple Edge Wipers, P.O. Box 8250, Atlanta, Georgia. Please include your car or car's make, model, and year for correct sizing. Use your credit card and call now 1-800-257-1257.
This is CNN.
I'm Cheryl Atkinson at the CNN Center at Atlanta. We'll return to CNN World Report in a moment, but first we want to show you some pictures we have just in from Univision of some Patriot missiles, or at least one missile, being fired from Saudi Arabia at an incoming Iraqi Scud missile. These pictures taken just about 2 hours ago. I think you could hear an explosion. And the pictures supplied by Univision supposedly show a Patriot missile being fired in the direction of an Iraqi missile coming in from Iraq. This happened within the last couple of hours. Let's go now to Wolf Blitzer at the Pentagon, who has some new information for us. Wolf?
Cheryl, we do have some new information. The Pentagon spokesman, Pete Williams, who cautioned us about an hour or so ago when he briefed us about the Scuds coming into eastern Saudi Arabia, that those were preliminary reports, just came into the reporters area here at the Pentagon and said that new information now confirms to the Pentagon that it was not 2 Scuds that were targeted towards the large U.S. airbase near Dhahran in eastern Saudi Arabia, but in fact it was 3 Scuds, and that 5 Patriot missiles took off, intercepted those 3 incoming Scud missiles. The 5 Patriots destroyed all 3 Scuds. There was no damage. U.S. investigators have gone out into the desert to start looking at the debris. There were indications from our correspondent, Charles Jaco, who was out on the scene, that there could have been perhaps even more Scuds, but the Pentagon is now saying that they have confirmed 3 Scuds, not 2 as earlier announced. All 3 were destroyed by this Patriot air defense system. Cheryl?
Wolf, I'm wondering if you have any idea if the confusion could be partly caused by people who thought a Scud missile had gotten through and landed. Perhaps that was the debris falling from the intercept.
That's possible. That could have been one explanation, but the U.S. Has very, very sophisticated technical means, satellites, to pick up as soon as a Scud is launched. And the information now is that 3 were launched. All 3 were destroyed. And the assessment here at the Pentagon, and this again is the preliminary assessment, the assessment is that all 3 had conventional high explosive warheads, did not have chemical or gas warheads.
Thank you very much. Wolf Blitzer reporting to us from the Pentagon. Coming up in just about a half hour at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we expect to have some Iraqi television-supplied interviews with what it says are coalition pilots shot down over Iraq and Kuwait. We expect that about 4:30 in just about a half hour. For now, back to CNN World Report.
Welcome back to CNN World Report, where we bring you the news as reported by broadcasters worldwide, uncensored. I'm Rolf Wenge. In Cyprus, police have responded to the outbreak of war by stepping up internal security. 44 Arab visitors have been expelled, some of whom were detained at a resort hotel near a British air base on the southern part of the island. CYBC has more on the impact of the war on Cyprus.
Cyprus lies in the eastern Mediterranean, some 2,000 kilometers from Kuwait, and was never expected to be in any immediate danger from a conflict to extract Iraqi forces from the oil emirate. The day war broke out, and as the multinational force began its bombardment of Baghdad and occupied Kuwait, calm prevailed in Cyprus. A day earlier, panic buying and food stockpiling emptied many shops and prompted the foreign and defense ministers to make several appeals for calm. In the early hours of Thursday, January 17th, the day Operation Desert Shield became Operation Desert Storm, most of Cyprus was awake, watching events in Baghdad, along with most of the rest of the world, live on CNN International. Reports that most, if not all, of Saddam Hussein's chemical and biological weapon installations and much of his air force had been destroyed soothed a jittery Cypriot population, whose main concern had been the possibility of an attack by Iraqi forces against the large British airbase at Akrotiri, just outside Limassol on the southern coast. Defence Minister Andreas Aloneftis had sought to allay these fears by noting on local radio that none of Iraq's military aircraft had the fuel capacity to fly that distance and return to base. The commander of the British bases, meanwhile, made a public statement on British Forces radio, maintaining that the involvement of the bases was limited to ferrying supplies and personnel to the war front. Even as UN dependents and non-essential personnel arrived in Cyprus from other Middle East countries to to sit out this conflict in safety, a number of British and European tour operators contacted clients holidaying on the island and told them to prepare to leave, cutting short their holidays. Some did leave, ignoring a statement from the Foreign Office in London and the British High Commission in Nicosia that there were no plans to evacuate British nationals from the island and that those due to travel here weren't being advised to change their plans. Others, however, decided to stay. Cyprus's medical services remain at the ready to offer whatever treatment is necessary to war casualties. The Health Ministry says that there are 600 beds available immediately in 2 general hospitals close to international airports at Larnaca and Paphos on the southern coast. The international aid organisation Médecins Sans Frontières has established its supply depot here on the island to supply reception camps set up in nearby Jordan and Syria. But the organisation still has no idea of how large the refugee problem might become. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees will deal with refugee reception in Cyprus and will work closely with the International Committee of the Red Cross. Both organisations were instrumental in caring for 200,000 Greek Cypriots who became refugees overnight when Turkey invaded Cyprus 16 years ago. Vivian Ladamatu for CNN World Report, Nicosia.
On Friday, the Kuwaiti news agency reported that when the shells started falling on Kuwait City, some loyal citizens rushed to their rooftops to praise God. The agency described the joy the Kuwaitis felt once the liberation of their country had begun. Those feelings were also conveyed in a message from the Emir of Kuwait, which is brought to us by Saudi TV.
The whole world is now facing the rule of the jungle which the Iraqi regime has tried to impose upon us. The word of law and the international community have come to our aid. God Almighty could delay things, but never neglects them. My dear compatriots, we are always proud of you because of the arrests and the torture and the imprisonment that was perpetrated by the occupier. We live with you day and night, and we know your dilemma, and we feel your torment. Now the operation of liberating our dear land has started, and we will meet soon in our beloved country. All Kuwaitis in their homeland, Kuwait. Our faith in God and in you was great. And we always thought that the terrorism of the aggressors will not affect you or impact you. And this is what happened. It made you more brotherly and more compatriot with each other. And that you have actually beaten your aggressors with your strong wills.
When we return to CNN World Report, a crackdown in the Soviet Union while the world watches the war in the Gulf.
Thousands are pouring through this historic wall into the west. The wall itself is being torn apart by...
Started as rebellion and it turned to bloodshed as Gorbachev's grasp of these troubled areas appears to be slipping secure in Tiananmen Square.
People running, screaming. A lone student is standing in front of an oncoming tank.
Events that astonished all who observed them, all except the readers of World Monitor magazine. Every month, World Monitor brings you current events analysis so astute, it often foretells the news before it happens, because it's written by people like Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and Zbigniew Brzezinski. Now you can get a free issue of World Monitor with no obligation by calling 1-800-395-WORLD. If you choose, subscribe for a year at just $14.97 and get 12 issues of incisive reporting on politics, economics, the environment, and more. Unbiased, unparalleled World Monitor magazine, where the people in the news report the news.
The wall is down. Who could have envisioned this world-shaking development?
If you could taste time, the sun, fresh air, if you could taste pride, dedication, this is what it would taste like. Smucker's low sugar spreads. Half the sugar, all the fruit, all the tradition.
Painful sore throat and no chloroseptic spray? That's okay. Chloroseptic lozenges actually work like the spray to penetrate nerve endings and stop pain fast. Great tasting chloroseptic lozenges. Fast relief when you're away from your spray.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun.
Nobody's got it. CNN has been told that
CNN has become a primary source of
Listening to the CNN reporters who are watching it.
Charles Jaco, CNN reporter.
From Baghdad, John Holloman will be here if you need us.
I watch CNN. That's the world's intelligence service.
The unique role CNN is playing.
Watching CNN, mesmerized.
The best reporting that I've seen on what transpired in Baghdad was on CNN.
Now, more than ever, stay with CNN, the world's news leader.
While world attention has been riveted on the Gulf, a week has passed since the Soviet troops' deadly attack on the Lithuanian TV tower. The Kremlin defended the army's assault as a defensive action, saying the crowd fired on the troops first. Eyewitnesses say the crowd was unarmed. In another move this week, President Gorbachev proposed a temporary suspension of the press law banning censorship. He later withdrew the suggestion. Soviet television has this perspective on the growing schism in the country.
14 people killed, almost 150 injured. The Bloody Sunday of January 13th in Vilnius has added to a long list of victims of interethnic clashes, which up till now occurred primarily in the southern parts of the Soviet Union. In Moscow, Leningrad, and other major cities, rallies took place against the use of force in the Lithuanian capital. This is a beginning of a major crackdown on democracy, and the Baltic republics are just the first victims of it. Events in Lithuania also stirred up criticism inside the Supreme Soviet, the national legislature. I believe force is the wrong way of solving problems. Despite the violation of national laws and the Soviet constitution by the Lithuanian leadership, measures taken against were inadequate. The Lithuanian society has split. One faction went to war against another, and the army was caught in between. Some observers believe that there was a serious threat of a civil war in Lithuania in mid-January. Reasons for fierce confrontations were plenty. The discriminatory policy of the local leadership towards ethnic minorities, its recent decision to put up prices on foodstuffs, the attempt of confronting political forces to win points by playing on ill feelings and prejudices, and the lack of unbiased information on what's going on in the Republic. In the aftermath of violent clashes, several discriminatory laws and regulations are being revised, and prices are lowered. The first timid moves are made to resume dialogue between the federal and the local authorities. Similar steps are now made in the neighboring republics of Latvia and Estonia, where the situation pretty much followed the same pattern as in Lithuania and could have led to a tragedy too. On the whole, the situation in the Baltics still remains very tense and complicated. Meanwhile, the simmering civil war in Transcaucasia has considerably intensified. 13 people, about as many as in Lithuania, were killed in the last 2 weeks in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh, and the curfew regulations have been tightened. We are taking resolute steps to repel attacks by the extremists against both military units and civilians. Both the USSR Council of Federation, which consists of leaders of all the 15 constituent republics, and the National Parliament are now trying to stop the country from sliding atrophy. The parliamentary session approved the new lineup of the federal government proposed by President Gorbachev last week. The former finance minister Valentin Pavlov replaced Nikolai Ryzhkov as prime minister. I believe our country's huge resources will allow it to prosper just as any civilized society at the end of the 20th century.
President Gorbachev believes that his new team will eventually manage to do something the previous one did not, to improve the economy and curb violence in the Soviet Union. Mikhail Gorbachev has also made it clear that if this cabinet fails to achieve that, the country should look for another president. For CNN World Report, this is Maxim Tkachenko in Moscow.
Developing countries have often claimed that news coverage of the world is dominated by a small number of large Western news organizations, and therefore, they charge, it is heavily influenced by Western values and perspectives. Much of the news the world hears about developing countries doesn't include stories seen as important by those countries themselves. Well, to counter that situation, a number of African countries have formed their own news exchange. We have more on this from Ghana's GTV.
The Utna News Exchange program has been running for 14 days on a trial basis. By the 17th of January, when the program takes off officially, the countries involved will have overcome the difficulties associated with news exchange by satellite. Under the program, 10 countries will exchange important television news items through the program center in Algiers. They are Ghana, Algeria, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, and Nigeria. The rest are Senegal, Tunisia, and Zimbabwe. Kenya or Angola will soon join the group to bring the number to 10. The program, which is expected to involve African events, is designed to enable Africans to know more about their continent from African sources. The other reason for the news exchange is that African events covered by foreign journalists are often distorted with emphasis on natural disasters, civil wars, and social unrest. The result is that the positive aspect of African life is never portrayed. Africans are therefore given the impression that nothing good comes out of their continent. A chief editor of Ghana's television newsroom explained some of the benefits of the program.
GBC TV News will derive a great deal of benefit from the Utna News Exchange, which we started today. You realize that most of our foreign news comes from Western sources, and most of it is news about the West. We hardly get news about our own African neighbors in our news. And I believe strongly that if this program succeeds, we'll get to know more about Africa from African sources instead of getting the news from foreign sources, which are mostly distorted.
The president of Utna, Mr. Slahidine Maoui of Tunisia, commended the officials and governments involved in the program for their enthusiasm. He urged them to help make the program a success.
Je vous souhaite à tous une bonne et heureuse année. Merci.
The countries involved in the program have shown their determination to inform their nationals of events in other parts of the continent. The door is still open. It is expected that more countries will join the news exchange program. Emmanuel Vogber, Ghana Television, for the CNN World Report.
Coming up on CNN World Report, Soviet-made bombs fall on Namibia. We'll get some clues to where they came from when we return.
If after test driving a Sterling, you find another car with all of its standard features and appointments for $28,500 or less, we'll do more than congratulate you. We'll buy it for you. Washington apples. They're as good as you've heard.
On board, there are pools and a health spa, a string quartet, a friendly staff, and people just like you who are enjoying themselves like never before. At Holland America, not only do we offer all the pleasures of a vacation at sea, we've made it remarkably affordable, which is why perhaps we've been named the best cruise line in the world.
Ricola, the all-natural herb cough drop imported from Switzerland. Ricola has been soothing throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years.
Go! Do
it. Put it on the air.
We've got an attack here. I guess you know that.
Don't interrupt him. Let's hear this. I need Oman. I need Saudi Arabia. I need the White House. I need the Pentagon.
It looks like this first phase is over, and we'll get back to you when it all starts again.
When Parliament convenes in South Africa next month, President de Klerk is expected to repeal two major pillars of the apartheid system. A new law would abolish the Group Areas Act and the Land Acts, which strictly limit what property black South Africans can own and where they can live. Another issue that will be hotly debated is the economy. Some say that nationalized industries should be transferred to private hands. Global Vision gives us a report of this debate, focusing on what to do with these assets.
The way to get these assets that the government now owns and manages inefficiently into private hands is not to sell them off to the highest bidder, which is what they have been doing actually. The way to get them out into the market in the best manner is to literally give the assets away.
But will this proposal address the inequalities generated by decades of apartheid? Richard Knight of the American Committee on Africa thinks not.
It doesn't seem to me that it's going to solve the basic infrastructural problems of South Africa, which are necessary for any kind of proper economic development. Proper schools for the majority, decent housing, a whole series of capital investment programs. These are only going to take place with proper money by the state.
The scheme overall adds tremendous stability, gives large actors within the white and black communities the incentive to move forward towards real reform, meaning one man, one vote democracy. And that might be just the catch that brings the clerk and enough of the National Party to the bargaining table on this kind of a program, which would be preemptive. This goes before the one man, one vote democracy. This, in essence, is a prerequisite for successful reform.
This debate is still somewhat academic because the government and the business sector have yet to consider proposals for a fundamental restructuring of the economy.
I think one of the important problems of Professor Haslam's proposal is that it's jumping the gun. People in South Africa are debating what a post-apartheid economy should be like. The trade unions are studying the issue. The African National Congress has talked about a mixed economy where markets play a role, but so does the state. By implementing a proposal such as this, the white government would be precluding options for a democratically elected government to choose the form of the South African economy.
We will continue to cover this debate as it unfolds. For South Africa Now, this is Emily Casrell reporting.
On Monday, the Namibian government condemned the bombing raids earlier this month in northern Namibia. No country has been accused of the attack, although politicians and police authorities point out that neighboring Angola has MiG fighter planes like those that were used in the attack. Angola has used those planes in its war with the UNITA rebels along the Namibian border. Namibian Broadcasting has more on the mysterious bombings.
During the first few days of the new year, northern Namibia has once again been subject to unprovoked attacks by foreign MiG-23 fighter bombers. According to eyewitnesses, 2 aircraft of that type approached Omega military base in northern Namibia at about 9:38 on the 4th of January. The aircraft approached from the east, one went into a bombing run and dropped 6 500 kg high-explosive fragmentation bombs of Soviet origin. 3 of these bombs were fitted with impact detonating devices, 2 with airburst proximity fuses and 1 with a delay fuse. The latter caused the crater some 3 meters deep and 12 meters across. The vegetation surrounding the point of impact has been devastated for about 100 meters. At Bagani, a Namibian Defense Force outpost on the bank of the Okavango River, an unidentified aircraft, thought to be a MiG-23, approached from a northerly direction. In this case, a 500 kg cluster bomb was dropped. This type of bomb contains up to 75 smaller bombs, weighing 2.5 kilograms each. These bomblets are released at a predetermined height by the mother bomb and then spread over a large distance. Remains of 14 smaller bombs were found at the site, indicating that possibly more bomblets are still contained in the mother bomb, which struck the ground some 35 meters from the temporary accommodation for a contingent of the Namibian Defense Force. One of the bomblets dropped some 15 meters from a water affairs building and extensively damaged the ceiling and shattered the windows. At Bagani and Omega, reports were also received that bombs had been dropped at Nkurukuru further west and at Omega 3. These incidents had not yet been investigated. This is Peter Mietzner at Bagani, Namibia, for CNN World Report.
Here's what's ahead in the next half hour of CNN World Report. Colombia's drug lords turn themselves in. Qatar interviews a former PLO deputy. South Africa tightens gun control with a firearm crackdown. The head of China's central bank addresses national economy. Bolivian